On March 10, 1987, in the quiet car park of the Golden Lion pub in Sydenham, South London, a brutal murder shattered the evening.
Daniel Morgan, a 37-year-old private investigator, was discovered with an axe embedded in his head. This was no random act. Morgan had been targeted, his wallet still in his pocket, a gold watch on his wrist. The scene suggested a professional hit, but the immediate police response would set a precedent for decades of controversy, transforming a local crime into a national scandal. This wasn't merely a failure to solve a murder, it was the unfolding of a profound institutional crisis, a case where the protectors became part of the problem.
Daniel Morgan wasn't just any private investigator.
He was co-founder of Southern Investigations, a firm rapidly gaining a reputation for uncovering truths, often inconvenient ones, for high-profile clients. Known for his meticulous approach and sharp instincts, Morgan was actively pursuing several sensitive cases that involved potential police corruption and drug trafficking. His work often led him into shadowy corners of London, making powerful enemies in both the criminal underworld and, perhaps, within the very institutions meant to uphold justice. His relentless pursuit of truth made him a valuable asset to his clients, but also a dangerous threat to those with secrets to hide, potentially sealing his fate.
From the very outset, the police investigation into Daniel Morgan's murder was plagued by critical errors.
Crucial evidence was mishandled, the crime scene was inadequately secured, and vital leads were either ignored or compromised. Within hours, allegations began to surface linking some officers to the suspects, specifically Morgan's business partner, Jonathan Rees.
This immediate cloud of suspicion set the tone for what would become a generational struggle for accountability.
The systemic failures at this early stage were not merely procedural oversights, they were foundational cracks that would undermine every subsequent attempt to secure justice, turning the case into a symbol of institutional mistrust. The focus quickly narrowed to a tight-knit group, Morgan's business partner Jonathan Rees, and brothers Glenn and Gary Vian, along with James Cook. These individuals were known to operate in the grey areas of London's underworld, often with reported connections to corrupt police officers. Allegations swiftly emerged that Rees had direct involvement, potentially motivated by financial disputes or fear of what Morgan knew.
What's crucial here is not just the identification of suspects, but the immediate and persistent claims from multiple sources that elements within the Metropolitan Police were actively protecting them, or at least obstructing the investigation.
These were credible warnings that went unheeded. The initial investigation didn't just fail, it demonstrably veered off course due to suspected corruption. Reports indicated that a detective involved in the case was providing confidential information to suspects, effectively sabotaging efforts from within. This critical breach of trust became a recurring theme. The case wasn't merely difficult, it was actively being undermined by those sworn to protect the public. The Metropolitan Police, instead of addressing these grave concerns, often dismissed them as mere speculation or internal politics, creating a culture where accountability was secondary to maintaining institutional reputation. This early institutional resistance solidified the conspiracy theories that would plague the case for decades. Over the next 3 decades, the Daniel Morgan murder would be subjected to no fewer than 5 separate police investigations. Each new inquiry brought renewed hope for Daniel's family, only to collapse under the weight of previous errors, compromised evidence, and persistent allegations of police malpractice. This wasn't a case of a single misstep but a continuous cycle where new teams inherited a poisoned chalice. The inability to secure convictions stemmed not from a lack of potential suspects or motive, but from the cumulative damage of botched initial steps and the systematic failure to confront internal corruption, creating an impenetrable barrier to justice. Each attempt was doomed by its predecessors. For years, the Metropolitan Police maintained a defensive and often dismissive posture regarding the allegations of corruption. Public statements frequently downplayed the severity of the institutional failures, framing them as isolated incidents or errors of judgment rather than systemic issues. This stance only deepened the public's skepticism and fueled the family's unwavering belief that the truth was being actively suppressed. The institution prioritized its image over transparency, inadvertently constructing a narrative of cover-up that would prove incredibly difficult to dismantle, further entrenching the case in controversy and reinforcing the perception of a police force above accountability. At the heart of this decades-long saga is Daniel Morgan's brother, Alastair Morgan, and his family, whose relentless pursuit of justice became a powerful, unwavering force. They refused to accept the official narrative or the numerous failures, tirelessly campaigning, meeting with politicians, journalists, and legal experts. Their dedication ensured the case never faded into obscurity, continually pressing for inquiries and accountability. Their fight highlighted the immense psychological and financial toll of battling a state institution, demonstrating how personal grief can fuel an enduring quest for truth when official channels fail to deliver. This wasn't just a murder case, it was a testament to one family's unwavering resolve. A critical aspect of the case involved the use and alleged misuse of police informants. Jonathan Rees, one of the primary suspects, was later revealed to have worked as a police informant, a fact that complicated investigations immeasurably. The reliability and management of informants often walk a fine line. They provide intelligence but can also compromise cases or be protected for their value. In the Morgan case, this created a direct conflict of interest, where the imperative to solve a murder clashed with the perceived utility of a potential suspect as an intelligence asset. This ethical dilemma crippled investigative integrity and fueled accusations of deliberate obstruction. The financial cost of these repeated failures is staggering. While the specific total is hard to quantify, estimates place the direct costs of the 5 police investigations, legal fees, and the subsequent public inquiry well over £30 million. This figure represents not just monetary waste, but a profound misallocation of public resources that could have been directed towards solving other crimes or preventing future ones. The investment yielded precisely 0 convictions, showcasing a catastrophic return on public funds. Each new attempt, rather than building on previous efforts, seemed to restart, absorbing more resources into a seemingly endless cycle of review and collapse, with taxpayers footing the bill. The passage of time compounded the forensic challenges. With each passing year, the likelihood of recovering viable DNA evidence or accurate witness testimonies diminished significantly. The initial mishandling of the crime scene meant that what little evidence might have been present was either contaminated, lost, or never properly analyzed. The decay of physical evidence over decades creates an almost insurmountable barrier for modern forensic techniques, which rely heavily on pristine samples. This decay highlights a critical aspect of criminal investigations. The golden hour for evidence collection, once missed, can rarely be fully recovered, especially in cases marred by such early systemic failures. A significant push came in 2006, with a renewed investigation by the Metropolitan Police's Specialist Operations Unit, led by Detective Chief Superintendent David Cook. This inquiry generated considerable optimism, leading to multiple arrests in 2008, including Jonathan Rees and the Vian brothers. For the first time, it seemed justice was within reach. However, despite these arrests, the Crown Prosecution Service ultimately dropped the charges in 2011, citing insufficient evidence, particularly due to the unreliability of a key Supergrass witness. This collapse underscored the profound legacy of corruption and mishandling, as evidence gathered decades prior proved too compromised to withstand judicial scrutiny. Another cycle of hope was extinguished. While Jonathan Rees evaded conviction for Daniel Morgan's murder, his criminal activities were well documented. In 1999, he was convicted for conspiring to plant cocaine on a woman to discredit her in a custody battle, serving 7 years in prison. After his release, he continued to operate in the murky world of private investigations and tabloid journalism, often implicated in illegal phone hacking and data theft for newspapers. This pattern of criminal behavior, though unrelated to the murder conviction, reinforced the perception of his moral compass and the dangerous circles he moved in, further complicating public understanding of the Morgan case and the Met's dealings with him. The persistent failures and the family's unwavering advocacy eventually led to the establishment of the Daniel Morgan Independent Panel, DMIP, in 2013. This was not a police investigation but an independent public inquiry, mandated to review all documentation, including sensitive police files, and examine the circumstances of Daniel Morgan's murder and the subsequent handling by law enforcement. The creation of DMIP marked a crucial shift, acknowledging that the police could not investigate themselves. It represented a political recognition that trust in the Met was so severely eroded that an external, impartial body was required to uncover the truth and account for the repeated failures. In 2021, after 8 years of meticulous work, the DMIP released its explosive 1,200-page report. Its central, damning conclusion: the Metropolitan Police was institutionally corrupt. This term wasn't used lightly. It described a collective organizational failing, a culture and practice that prioritized self-preservation and reputation management over transparency, accountability, and the pursuit of justice. It meant that the corruption wasn't just about a few bad apples, but a systemic problem deeply embedded in the structures and behaviors of the force, hindering their ability to investigate crime and serve the public effectively. This was a direct indictment of the entire institution, not just individuals. The repercussions of the Daniel Morgan case, culminating in the DMIP's findings, have had a measurable impact on public confidence in law enforcement. Historically, trust in UK police forces has been high, often exceeding 80% in the 1980s. However, controversies like the Morgan case, alongside others, have steadily eroded this trust. By 2021, studies showed public trust in the police dropped to 56% nationally, with the Metropolitan Police specifically facing even lower approval ratings. This decline signifies more than just a public relations problem. It reflects a deep societal concern about accountability, integrity, and the very foundation of policing by consent, making community cooperation in crime fighting significantly harder. Comparing the UK's approach, exemplified by the DMIP, to police oversight models in the US highlights distinct philosophical differences. The DMIP was a retrospective, ad hoc independent panel, established only after decades of failure, tasked with an extremely broad mandate to examine systemic corruption and issue recommendations. In contrast, many U.S. cities employ civilian review boards, CRBs, which are often ongoing, proactive bodies focused on individual misconduct complaints and specific incidents. While CRBs aim for continuous oversight, they often lack true investigative or enforcement powers, remaining largely advisory. Both models grapple with independence, but the sheer scope of DMIP's mandate demonstrates the deep systemic issues it addressed. The Daniel Morgan Independent Panel itself came at a significant cost, underscoring the expense of retrospective accountability when initial investigations falter. Over its 8-year lifespan, the DMIP cost the British taxpayer approximately £14.2 million. This figure covers the salaries of its expert panel members, researchers, legal counsel, and administrative staff, alongside the immense undertaking of reviewing millions of pages of police documents. While substantial, this cost is a direct consequence of the initial police failures and subsequent cover-ups. It represents the price society pays when institutions cannot self-correct, and external intervention becomes necessary to re-establish public trust and demand transparency, even decades after the original crime occurred. One of the most damning aspects of the DMIP's findings was the extent of lost and compromised evidence. Crucial documents disappeared, police notebooks vanished, and witness statements were reportedly altered or suppressed. In one egregious instance, an exhibit bag containing key items was found years later, unsealed and tampered with. This wasn't merely negligence, it pointed to a deliberate pattern of obstruction that systematically undermined every investigative effort. The cumulative effect of these lapses meant that even if a perpetrator were identified, the prosecutorial case would be fatally weakened, making a conviction virtually impossible. The integrity of the entire evidence chain was broken from day one. Alastair Morgan's powerful statement following the DMIP report encapsulated the family's exhaustion and the limited victory of truth without justice. For them, the report confirmed their long-held suspicions of police corruption, providing official validation for decades of tireless campaigning. Yet, this truth came without the ultimate goal, a conviction for Daniel's killer. The quote highlights a crucial distinction: while the panel exposed the institutional failings, it could not, by its nature, solve the murder or deliver criminal accountability for those involved in the obstruction. It was a moment of vindication for the family's claims, but also a stark reminder of the enduring impunity of Daniel's murderers.
The DMIP report explicitly condemned the Metropolitan Police's culture of secrecy and a reluctance to challenge inappropriate conduct. This institutional ethos allowed corrupt practices to flourish unchecked, creating an environment where officers felt protected from scrutiny. Such a culture is not unique to the Met but is a persistent challenge in large, hierarchical organizations, particularly those with significant power like law enforcement. It fosters a blue wall of silence, where internal solidarity trumps external accountability, effectively creating an internal barrier to reform and transparency. This inherent resistance to self-correction is arguably the most corrosive legacy of the Daniel Morgan case. The Daniel Morgan case starkly highlighted the inadequacies of whistleblower protection within the Metropolitan Police. Officers attempting to expose wrongdoing often faced internal skepticism, career damage, or outright retaliation, rather than being celebrated for their integrity. Comparing this to an ideal whistleblower model reveals significant gaps. An effective system requires robust, independent reporting channels, strong legal protections against reprisal, and a culture that incentivizes transparency rather than silence. Without these safeguards, institutional corruption will continue to fester, as the personal cost of exposing it remains too high for individuals, perpetuating the cycle of secrecy and preventing crucial internal corrections. Throughout the decades, independent investigative journalism played a crucial, often unsung role in keeping the Daniel Morgan case alive. Journalists relentlessly pursued leads, interviewed sources, and challenged official narratives when the police wouldn't. Their persistent questioning and exposure of inconsistencies created public pressure that ultimately compelled political action and the establishment of the DMIP. Without this sustained media scrutiny, it is highly probable that the case would have faded into obscurity, and the institutional corruption would have remained entirely unaddressed. This exemplifies the essential democratic function of a free press in holding powerful institutions accountable, even when facing significant resistance. The DMIP report sent shockwaves through the UK political establishment. Home Secretary Priti Patel stated the report exposed a shocking catalogue of failures and issued an apology to the Morgan family. However, the government's initial response was also criticized for its perceived reluctance to fully accept the institutional corruption finding. This political tightrope walk highlights the sensitivity of challenging powerful state institutions. While public apologies were made, the tangible reforms and accountability for those responsible for the cover-up remained a contentious issue. The political will to enact deep, systemic change often lags behind the rhetorical condemnation of past failures. The DMIP report concluded with a comprehensive set of recommendations aimed at preventing similar institutional failures in the future. These included calls for greater transparency, enhanced police accountability mechanisms, improved whistleblower protections, and a radical overhaul of how corruption is investigated within the force. It emphasized the need for a shift in police culture, from a defensive stance to one that embraces openness and genuine self-correction. The challenge, however, lies in the implementation. Transforming recommendations into enforceable policies and deeply ingrained cultural changes within a large, resistant institution is a monumental task that requires sustained political will and commitment from police leadership. Despite the DMIP's damning report and clear recommendations, the path to genuine reform within the Metropolitan Police remains an uphill battle. Critics argue that while some superficial changes have been made, the deep-seated cultural issues identified by the panel persist. Metrics for measuring progress, such as internal investigations or disciplinary actions against officers implicated in the cover-up, have often been slow or inconclusive. The institution's size and inherent resistance to external criticism make rapid, comprehensive change incredibly challenging. This slow pace of reform risks undermining the very purpose of the DMIP, leaving the door open for similar failures to recur, and public trust to remain fractured. For Daniel Morgan's family, the DMIP report brought a form of official vindication, yet it offered no true closure. The murder remains unsolved, the perpetrators unpunished. Alastair Morgan continues his fight, not just for his brother, but for broader police accountability. The emotional toll of nearly 4 decades of uncertainty, compounded by the knowledge of systemic betrayal, is immense.
This aspect of the case transcends legal and institutional analysis, highlighting the profound human cost of prolonged injustice. The family's enduring pain serves as a stark reminder that behind every statistic of institutional failure lies an agonizing personal tragedy, perpetually seeking resolution. Despite decades of investigation, the precise motive behind Daniel Morgan's murder remains officially unconfirmed, shrouded by the institutional corruption that complicated every inquiry. Theories range from financial disputes within Southern investigations to Morgan uncovering deeply incriminating information about high-level police corruption or drug networks. His work as a private investigator meant he dealt with sensitive information daily, making him a threat to various powerful figures. The very obfuscation caused by police interference ensures that pinpointing the exact motive is nearly impossible, leaving an enduring shadow over the why and further cementing the case's unsolvable nature in the public consciousness. The Daniel Morgan murder case leaves behind a profound and painful legacy, a legacy of institutional betrayal. It illustrates how corruption, when left unchecked, can not only impede justice for an individual but also systematically undermine the foundational principles of law enforcement and public trust. The Met's failures weren't merely passive negligence. They were active choices to shield individuals, conceal errors, and prioritize institutional image over truth. This saga serves as a cautionary tale, demonstrating the critical importance of robust oversight, transparency, and genuine accountability in maintaining the integrity of any powerful public body. Its shadow will loom large over British policing for generations. Statistically, the resolution rates for cold cases globally, and particularly in the UK, are notoriously low, typically ranging between 10 to 20%. The Daniel Morgan case exemplifies the challenges. With each passing year, witness memories fade, evidence degrades, and new leads become exponentially harder to generate. Studies indicate that the likelihood of fresh witness leads diminishes by as much as 75% after just 5 years. While DNA advancements offer hope, they require viable samples, which were often compromised or lost early in this investigation. The odds were stacked against justice from the outset, making the DMIP's findings even more poignant as they confirm systematic failures amplified the inherent difficulties of a cold case. The enduring struggle for truth in the Daniel Morgan case transcends a simple desire for criminal conviction. It has evolved into a perpetual battle against institutional opacity and the inherent resistance of powerful bodies to acknowledge their flaws. The family's fight, supported by diligent journalists, has forced a critical examination of police ethics and accountability, not just in the UK but internationally. This case serves as a powerful reminder that justice is not solely delivered in courtrooms, it is also forged in the relentless pursuit of transparency and the courageous challenging of authority, ensuring that the lessons learned from past failures inform the future of public service and governance. Nearly 4 decades after Daniel Morgan's brutal murder, no one has been brought to justice for his killing. The case stands as a chilling testament to how deeply embedded institutional corruption can protect perpetrators and evade accountability. While the DMIP report offered a moment of truth, the lingering question remains: have the lessons truly been learned? Without robust, enforced reforms and a genuine cultural shift within the Metropolitan Police, the risk of similar institutional failures persists. Daniel Morgan's murder is more than a cold case, it is a profound indictment of a system that failed spectacularly and continues to struggle with the path towards genuine justice. To fully grasp the magnitude of the Daniel Morgan case, we must review its harrowing timeline. It began in March 1987 with a brutal murder. Over the next 2 decades, multiple police investigations repeatedly failed to secure a conviction, marred by incompetence and allegations of corruption. Key suspect Jonathan Rees was even convicted for other crimes in 1999, highlighting his shadowy connections. A significant renewed push in 2006 led to arrests, only for charges to be dropped in 2011. The establishment of the Daniel Morgan Independent Panel in 2013 marked a turning point, culminating in its damning 2021 report, which officially exposed the institutional corruption at the heart of the Metropolitan Police. The Daniel Morgan case presents a stark comparison between its immense financial cost and its immeasurable human cost. Financially, over £30 million has been spent on investigations and public inquiries, representing a significant burden on taxpayers and a clear example of economic inefficiency in public service. Yet, this pales in comparison to the human toll. Daniel Morgan's life brutally cut short, and his family subjected to nearly 4 decades of trauma, grief, and a relentless fight against institutional resistance. The erosion of public trust in the police and justice system is another profound human cost, impacting community safety and the very fabric of society. This imbalance underscores the true tragedy. The DMIP's findings on institutional corruption offer a contemporary and stark definition of the blue wall of silence. It's not just individual officers covering for colleagues, it's a systemic culture that actively resists external scrutiny and prioritizes reputation management over accountability. This pervasive mentality, identified by the panel, means that even well-intentioned officers face immense pressure to conform, or risk isolation and career repercussions. The Daniel Morgan case tragically illustrates how this wall can shield murderers and obstruct justice for decades, perpetuating a cycle of impunity and eroding the very trust necessary for effective policing in a democratic society. It's a collective failure, not just individual acts. Despite the DMIP's damning report, actual accountability for those who facilitated the corruption and obstruction remains largely elusive. While the report provided an official narrative, it did not lead to criminal charges for officers involved in the initial cover-up or subsequent failings. This raises fundamental questions about the efficacy of public inquiries when they cannot compel criminal accountability for past wrongs. The gap between identifying systemic failures and holding specific individuals responsible for their role in those failures is a persistent challenge in governance. The Daniel Morgan case, therefore, becomes a powerful study in the limits of accountability, even in the face of overwhelming evidence of wrongdoing. The Daniel Morgan case, though rooted in London, carries global implications for policing and public trust. The challenges of institutional corruption, the blue wall, and the struggle for accountability are not unique to the Metropolitan Police. Law enforcement agencies worldwide grapple with these issues. The DMIP report offers a critical framework for understanding how such systemic failures can manifest and what steps are necessary for genuine reform. It serves as a universal cautionary tale that without unwavering commitment to transparency and ethical governance, even the most established and respected police forces can become compromised, jeopardizing their mission to serve and protect. Its lessons resonate far beyond Britain's borders. As we conclude our deep dive into the Daniel Morgan murder, the file remains officially unclosed. His killers walk free, shielded not only by the passage of time but by the deliberate actions and institutional failures of those sworn to uphold the law. The Metropolitan Police has offered apologies and promised reform, yet the stain of institutional corruption persists. The case stands as a powerful, unsettling reminder that justice is not always served, and sometimes, the greatest obstacles to truth come not from criminals, but from within the very systems designed to combat them. The legacy of Daniel Morgan's murder continues to challenge the integrity of British policing. The Metropolitan Police faces an immense task in rebuilding public trust and demonstrating genuine cultural change. This involves not only implementing the DMIP's recommendations but also fostering an environment where whistleblowers are protected, and accountability is rigorously enforced, irrespective of rank. Independent oversight must be strengthened, and a proactive approach to identifying and eradicating corruption must become deeply embedded. The road ahead is long and fraught with challenges, but the Daniel Morgan case serves as an indelible blueprint for what happens when these principles are abandoned. The focus must shift from defending reputation to proactively earning trust through transparent, ethical conduct. Beyond the headlines and official reports, the Daniel Morgan case is a human story of devastating loss and a relentless fight for truth. It's a story of a family's unwavering courage against an overwhelming institution. While the details of the corruption are complex, the core message is simple: society cannot function effectively when its protectors betray its trust. This case should serve as a permanent lesson, not just for law enforcement, but for all public institutions. The true measure of a society's commitment to justice lies not only in how it solves crimes, but in how it confronts its own failures and ensures accountability at every level.